All right, welcome back to the middle of a game of GP Ottawa. It's round three. We have Splashcat versus Badknight. Splashcat is
Yeah,
on Fireweaver Red, the mono red mid-range deck that runs 80 cards for Unrivaled Fireweaver, and Badknight is on blue-white Juyu pools, which is a control deck that aims to stall a game and ramp up super hard and eventually take over the game with the second mill of Juyu offering pools.
yeah. So this game at Splashcat was on the play. Had a good draw with Daisy Saxon into a Ricky's Dissident. Not pictured because it got J-ended.
Okay.
But Bad Knight is definitely under a lot of pressure because no sinkhole makes blue control deck sad
Wait, is Badknight
against
at
fast
8
draws.
life already? They're at 3 life already, huh? Did I join at an inopportune time for Badknight?
Yeah, I think like Splashcat decided to play the Hearth Halls instead of the Mountain, so fairly Syntasia flipping is not a concern for Bad Knight at the moment, but it is looking pretty rough for them. Probably need to be. I don't even know if they have outs with again this. I mean, the Fire Hearth Halls does represent attacker too.
Right, Badknight's going to play Johnny, it seems. Does that
And that
do
is
anything?
unfortunately leaving them dead on board. So
They can tap stuff, well, did they have any out though? Like, could they have done anything differently this
I don't
turn?
think so. I mean, they could Juyu and find a removal spell maybe. Um, but yeah, ultimately they don't really have any outs at this point with three attackers and them. I mean, now that five, but none of their cards do anything.
And Bad Knight concedes. Wonderful. That's good because like we have a control matchup, and at least game one went super quickly. So maybe we won't be here for an hour.
Yeah, I feel like Fireweaver Red is just generally pretty good at making fast games. Not necessarily because the games are like ending on turn 4 or something, though obviously it happens occasionally, as we saw there. But just
So
because
yeah.
the deck is pretty in your face about how good its cards are.
Anyways, sideboarding time. So Splashcat. Any sideboarding choices, or is the sideboard entirely a Fireweaver board?
Um, I, so the way that Splashcat has built the sideboard, I think it's basically mostly Fireweaver board. Dissident is probably a decent choice here. I think I generally like Dissident against control decks. Really suffers when like blocking is an issue because 2/2 haste is not the greatest body. But definitely not unreasonable to leave in the sideboard if Splashcat likes their other main deck cards.
Yeah.
Also had Bad Night. I think they're running the standard sideboard. Yeah, looks like it. So I'm imagining that Swan Cohort and Toddy are probably coming in. Harm's Way is a decent choice here. Binding Priest.
There's lots of good
Cutting
choices,
Sun.
right?
Yeah, there's also a fair amount of like kind of so-so cards main deck with like Amitai being definitely a bit on the slow side. For example.
Okay, so look at Bad Knight's hand. Do you keep this?
Yeah, absolutely. You're the player, right?
Right. So what's the chances that Bad Knight gets super punished for keeping this hand?
Basically very low, right?
If they don't top deck into a removal spell, that it
I
might
mean,
be
they have
trouble.
Juyu.
Yeah, but still, I mean, okay, yeah, fine.
Like Juyu, like what? Turn 2 Weeping Lotus, turn 3 Weeping Lotus Juyu, turn 4 Weeping Lotus, turn 5 I have Sujiro. Like,
Right.
I think you have enough mana to do that.
So Splashcat probably has a more interesting decision here.
I think this is probably a keep. On the draw, I feel like this is a keep.
I mean, I
On
would
the
keep
play,
this
maybe.
anyways because you have a decent curve.
Yeah, yeah, it probably is a keep on the play too. I mean, it's not impressive. Like, no great targets for Sizzle Mage.
Wait, okay, so Splashcat mulligans, and I'm not sure if this hand's any better.
Yeah, I mean, the Flames approach is nice. Imagine you bottom a Sizzle Mage here. Yeah. But I definitely do feel like just keeping Mono Red is generally a deck that's pretty happy about keeping 7. I mean, there's not a ton of nuance in a lot of their draws.
Yeah, I mean, the reason the deck is, or the reason why Mono Red is a good Fireweaver deck is because the deck just plays good cards. Like, there's no specific card that's super great or a lot better than everything else.
So Weeping Lotus is deployed.
Does Splashcat have any ways to kill that?
I think they have Metal Munch in board, Fireweaver, if they
Well, they can
want.
grab it with Fire. Oh, right, they mulligan to Fireweaver.
Um,
So
Wait,
Splashcat.
do they not? Oh no, they have Buddha Blow, not Metal Munch. But Amelia, it's letting a Fireweaver do that is not very exciting.
I think you're fine with like spending format. Like it's basically Manic Vandal, right? At that point. So I think that card does see play in Constructed.
Does.
In Standard, I think. Like
when was the last time Manic Vandal was in Standard?
I don't know, like 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think 10 years ago is a bit different. Yeah, I mean, the Eldraine adventure guy.
Yeah.
With some on the adventure, I think saw a bit of play.
Exactly.
But,
so Juyu pools flipped into Juyu pools. Like that would have been bad if Splashcat had a fast start, but Splashcat doesn't have a fast start, so Badknight's pretty happy about that.
It would need to be a pretty darn fast start to be pressuring here. Because
well,
I mean,
just go Ragavan or Daisy turn 1, and then you play a Rakiri Distant turn 2, and now you're and then like that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, but even then, I mean, next turn Badknight can just go Juyu. If they see a setting some, they can just play it, right?
Right.
Like, and like mono red is like fast if it can get those turn 1 Daisy draws, but it's not like that fast. I mean, obviously there's like fast draws. I mean, they can go turn 1 Daisy, turn 2 Sizzle Mage, Emissary Antiquities, attack for 6, free-casted King Ken, and get a bit out of hand. But those are pretty exceptional draws, and you're not going to be able to get those consistently especially with an 80 card deck.
So is Splashcat going to hardcast Sizzle Mage because they need to build up devotion for Auros?
Is it actually just a hardcast?
I mean, there's no point in not hardcasting it, right? Or I guess you can soft cast it first and then hardcast the event. You can cast it Adventurous Side because there's no downsides to doing that.
Well, I mean,
you get to pay for Cosmic Sinkhole.
Well, I mean, kind of, because if they had Sinkhole, they could just get Sinkhole the Kindling.
Do you get 2 Daisy triggers if you do that? No, it's all 2. Okay.
I mean, if you potentially could, if you had a lot more mana, you could remove the counter. So Sea Prophecy versus Juyu. Which one do you feel inclined to play here?
Well, I think you play Juyu because that thing digs deeper, and Badknight's inclined to agree. You take the Johnny here.
Johnny also gets to Prophecy, the Sea Prophecy.
Yep. Pretty good bonus.
Definitely, still probably in a pretty commanding position. I mean, triple Weeping Lotus is pretty nuts. I could actually, I could almost like taking Ico here, just -3. Just give a lot of respect to your opponent, but just being able to confidently say, yeah, you're not killing me anytime soon is pretty nice. Whereas this Johnny could potentially leave you in a bit of a hole.
Johnny minus.
Huh. But this is going to turn out pretty badly with Auros clearing the avatar token.
Yeah. Actually, I found out that, or I feel like the players who are new to the blue-white deck tend to minus the Johnny a lot.
I mean, it's a pretty good minus.
Yeah, but like if like from what I've seen of like you and Splashcat and other people playing the blue-white deck, you hardly ever minus a Johnny.
Yeah, I feel like at the very least here, it's a lot more respectable to minus a Johnny, just because, I mean, you have multiple Weeping Lotuses, you have multiple Sea Prophecies, multiple G's in play. And, I mean, it's not like you're getting much. I mean, what, the +1 would take up to 5, and you could Weeping Lotus, which isn't bad.
Yeah.
They are getting a bit punished here with Auros going down, clearing the token, the Sizzle Mage being able to clear Johnny on 1, and getting hit by with Daisy. And admittedly, maybe you could have suspected that Splashcat did have Auros just with that Sizzle Mage play. Because otherwise, I think the kind of reasonable thing to do is hold Sizzle Mage and just go turn 4 the Flames Approach Memento. But this ends up working out pretty well for Splashcat, and Badknight is put into a little bit of a hole that they probably will need a Wrath to get out of.
They have plenty of digging to get that Wrath, right? They have 6 looks off the 2 Seeks.
Would have very much liked that Harm's Way last turn, but...
we're going to see a funny Harm's Way eventually. Well, I guess you take the Event Horizon, because why not? You have no better options.
Yeah, Event Horizon is a nice answer to... Eventually, maybe, do you just want to Event Horizon the Auros here?
I think
you'll need to kill it eventually.
Because otherwise they can sack the Auros to draw some cards.
Yeah, but they do have 2 cards in hand.
Journey's End.
Discard your hand.
That's really good.
I decided to leave in the Amentai. Interesting.
Amentai is a finisher, which I guess you don't really need, but hey. Wait, what? You take the Amentai? I don't think you need Amentai, right? You can just hold up removal spells and then eventually with Juyu pools.
Well, I think they missed a land drop, which is unfortunate. I think the idea is that you have Event Horizon for the Auros, you have Harm's Way for the Sizzle Mage, and And then the Daisy's like a 3/3, which is like whatever. 14 life is like okay. I guess you're going down to 12 after the harm's way.
So question here. If your opponent tries to remove the orals, do you sack it in response?
I think so, yeah. I mean, well,
How good is Rattler? That's basically the question, right?
I feel like Rattler isn't great here because your opponent is on Wraths, right?
Right.
With both actual settings on as a Wrath as well
Splashcat is going to
as
try to take advantage of Daisy ability, so seems like Oros is not going to get sacked. And that might actually be a misplay in a way, right? Because now you lose Oros for no value.
I feel like it's not that big of a deal, but yeah, greeting the Daisy damage does feel a bit weird.
Also doing a pre-combat.
Yeah, pre-combat.
I mean, if Daisy gets removed.
Yeah, pre-combat is also probably a little bit of an error.
Like if Daisy gets removed, you just remove the counter, and then you have to worry about cadencing it.
Yeah. But yeah, Badknight not being able to find a Wrath, in addition to not going for Aiko, definitely feels like Aiko and then immediate Mindsley. Does feel like it is punishing them a little bit.
You can't harm's way the Rattler ability or Rattler ETB, and Badknight realizes that they did not play correctly. Actually, what do you think they're referring to?
I'm not actually sure.
Is it not taking the removal spell, or is it not event horizon in response to whatever?
I don't think I mean, they're not getting punished for like not eventualizing the auras or anything. Oh, I think that might have just been missing the land drop.
It's not like they can't do anything because they don't get. I guess it puts them off Amatai if they don't. If they top deck a land. Actually, no, it does put them off Amatai because they need to sack Lotus Petals to do stuff now.
They'll be good to play Amatai because they will have a Lotus Petal left after this Harm's Way. Yeah, presumably they're playing the Harm's Way.
But now they can't Amatai plus something else, right?
Well, it depends what it is because they will have 2 petals after Amatai.
They use Harm's Way to kill Leaf Down Citadel Mage and not even prevent all the damage. Wait, maybe they wanted to Harm's Way the Daisy ability. Wait, right. If they played Harm's Way in response to Daisy targeting their face.
Cool. Yeah, that would kill the Daisy, which is would have been a nice play.
They get
Sinkhole's not.
Yeah, they get to Amatai plus Sinkhole.
So the problem here is that they're dead.
Wait, what?
And they need to remedy that. Being dead off Rattler plus Daisy.
Oh, right.
And then Daisy triggers.
Amatai +2 try to draw into a removal spell. Like they have 2 mana floating afterwards, right? Off the Weeping Lotuses.
Yeah. The problem, I guess that is just the only way to go about it, right?
Yeah.
They actually are still dead after that to the Firehearth holes.
Maybe Splashcat doesn't go for it.
There's no real reason not to.
If you activate Firehearth Halls, can you still Flames Approach?
Yeah, from hand.
Right. Wait, you're gonna minus Amatai? That doesn't do anything. In fact, it turns off your own Weeping Lotuses.
Yeah, that leaves them dead on board with the Flames Approach Graveyard.
I mean, technically it does turn off Firehearth Halls, or does it?
Non-land.
But does it have Double Strike, or does it because of layers? I don't know.
It's still a land.
Game rule violation? Yeah, let's see if they catch that. Yeah, good. Splashcat caught that.
Also, Lotus doesn't sack.
Right.
Doesn't feel like does occasionally feel like Lotus should sack, but it doesn't.
And maybe it's because it's too much text. Otherwise,
yeah, maybe there's already 7 lines. Yeah, so this does leave them dead on board. Unfortunately, if they did draw 2 into a removal spell, immediately cast on Daisy, they'd still be dead, but at the very least they wouldn't know that they would be dead because this Flames Approach would have been needed to kill them.
Yeah,
does kind of feel like, I mean, definitely got a little bit unlucky not finding like a Wrath because Amatai was, for example, a whatchamacallit, the 6 mana the White Walker.
Mari.
Yeah, Mary. Then would have cleared the board, gained 2, and then would have been able to probably ISO Geo next turn.
Yeah,
that would have been still definitely a sketchy game if that happened. They definitely had some other options. I mean, I mentioned just grabbing Aiko instead of the Johnny.
Yeah.
But they did kind of get maximum punish for going for Johnny and then Mindsley. So
and I think Badknight kind of did get punished for just not being familiar with how the deck plays or like how to pilot the deck, because I guess blue-white control does require some experience in order to play optimally.
Yeah, I'm not I'm not sure how much of that was just like piloting, like being inexperienced with the deck versus just kind of being punished for like decent decisions. Because practically speaking, I think if it is like the leap from your opponent randomly playing out a Sizzle Mage to, oh yeah, they probably have Oros does feel like a bit of a leap. And Oros is, I think, the only real thing that punishes a Johnny there. I guess Fireweaver does too.
Well, I feel like a Johnny minus scene there was
Well,
iffy.
well, so Johnny Minuses goes to 1, but the thing is that what kills the 4/4, really? It's basically just the just Oros as well as Sea of Flesh or Fireweaver.
Right.
I think those are the only 2 things. Ajani is insulated from Saxon, so Saxon can attack Ajani. Sizzle Mage can, but the 4/4 blocks it. Ajani is blocked. Rattler and Emissary don't deal with Ajani, so that's good. Like the alternative is going plus Ajani. You gain 2, which is nice, but you don't get the 4/4, which is bad. And against Oros, I think that ends up the same. Yeah, it just ends up exactly the same against Oros. Because Oros just hits the Johnny for 4 instead of the token.
Right.
And Sizzle Mage clears it.
Yeah.
I guess you end up on 2 more life, but the benefit of it having 4/4 in play is pretty high. So I guess you have another Lotus in play too. So maybe you can get up to ISO0, and maybe that saves you.
Yeah.
But definitely not helped by the draws at the very least. I mean, I was talking about the targeting Wrath. Because I didn't find Toddy, and Toddy would have been pretty exceptional
Right.
in that game. But I guess Rattler did come down at some point, so maybe not as exceptional. Gee, I guess I can actually look at the Ico line and see how that would pan out. Because if you grab Ico instead of Ajani and then play Ico, and just -3, forcing the sack, I think you end up in a pretty good spot. I mean, all of that is just knowing that Splashcat has Oros, which maybe you can infer from the Sizzle Mage.
I mean, even if your opponent doesn't have Oros, maybe you just want to keep the board clear.
Yeah, you do end up at just being on 17 life with a whole bunch of mana.
And Seek Prophecy in exile.
And yeah, you basically have 2 Seek Prophecies and nothing else, but you have a healthy life total. So I think you end up being relatively safe there, off that line. Just because 17 life is a lot, you get a couple extra turns to 3 Weeping Lotuses to tick into ISO0.
Yeah.
I mean, hell, maybe you can just, if after that you can just play Weeping. I guess after that you can just go play Weeping Lotus, Seek Prophecy. Don't even play the second Seek Prophecy. You get 3 Lotus ticks, and then just untap Juyu or ISO0. I think that's probably a win. That is kind of, at the same time, if Splashcat did have a good amount of like threats in hand, and maybe that's not a win. Maybe they can't put enough pressure. 17 life is a decent amount.
Yeah.
And Johnny definitely does feel like it should have been reasonably safe at least. But
well, anyways, that's enough post-game analysis. So yeah, that's the game.